In exactly 47 minutes, a Boeing 777 will touch down at Norman Manley International Airport in Kingston, Jamaica. Nothing unusual about that, except this particular aircraft is carrying blueprints that could destroy Miami's $50 billion tourism stranglehold on the Caribbean forever. The passenger in seat 2A isn't a tourist. She's Marlene Stewart, Chief Infrastructure Officer for the Jamaica Airports Authority. The leather briefcase handcuffed to her wrist contains architectural plans that Miami International's executives would kill to see and would pay anything to stop. What you're about to hear is the inside story of how a Caribbean island smaller than Connecticut is executing the most audacious economic warfare campaign in modern tourism history. A $460 million gambit that could redirect 23 million passengers away from Florida and straight into Jamaica's waiting arms. The timer started 18 months ago. Miami has no idea it's running out of time. Picture Miami International Airport on a typical Tuesday morning in December 2023. Terminal D is packed with travelers heading to Caribbean destinations. American Airlines Flight 1247 to Kingston, Delta 2891 to Montego Bay, JetBlue 1156 to Barbados. Every gate buzzing with passengers clutching boarding passes that represent Jamaica's greatest frustration. For 60 years, Miami has operated as the Caribbean's unofficial capital, the gateway that every tourist must pass through to reach paradise. The bottleneck that generates $11 billion annually in Florida tourism revenue. The chokehold that Caribbean nations have been powerless to break. Until now, Dr. Patricia Williams sits in her Kingston office, surrounded by spreadsheets that would make Miami's tourism board physically ill. As Jamaica's Minister of Tourism, she spent 3 years analyzing a pattern that reveals Miami's fatal weakness. A weakness so obvious that nobody bothered to protect it. The numbers are staggering. 87% of European tourists visiting Jamaica are forced to connect through American airports. Not by choice, by necessity. A family from London wanting to vacation in Negril must fly London to Miami, then Miami to Jamaica, adding 6 hours of travel time, dealing with U.S. immigration, paying American airport fees, and often spending hundreds on Miami hotel rooms due to connection delays. Jamaica gets the tourist dollars eventually, but Miami gets them first. And Miami keeps a significant portion through what economists call leakage, revenue that flows out of the destination economy during the journey. Dr. Williams discovered that for every $100 a European tourist spends on a Jamaica vacation, $37 never leaves American soil. Multiply that by the 4.2 million international visitors Jamaica receives annually, and you're looking at $1.5 billion in lost revenue every year. That's when she realized something that would terrify Miami tourism officials. This arrangement wasn't permanent law. It was just habit, and habits can be broken. February 15, 2024. Construction crews break ground on what appears to be a routine airport expansion project at Norman Manley International. Local media reports describe it as terminal improvements and runway extensions, standard infrastructure development. The media reports are lies. What Jamaica is actually building represents the most sophisticated challenge to American tourism dominance in Caribbean history. A facility designed not just to handle more passengers, but to eliminate the need for Miami connections entirely. The project has a classified code name among Jamaican officials, Operation Bypass. Marlene Stewart oversees every detail from her secure command center. The woman who learned airport design at MIT and perfected it in Singapore now has unlimited government backing to build something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Caribbean. A hub capable of handling the world's largest aircraft with turnaround times that make Miami look prehistoric. Phase 1 involves something most people would never notice, but that changes everything. runway modifications that allow direct flights from Europe's largest airports. Not just London and Frankfurt, but Manchester, Barcelona, Rome, Amsterdam. Cities that currently have no direct Caribbean service because existing Caribbean airports lack the infrastructure for fully loaded wide-body aircraft on eight-hour flights. The engineering is breathtaking. Jamaica is installing CAT-IIC instrument landing systems, technology so advanced that aircraft can land in zero visibility conditions. Miami has CAT-II. The difference means Jamaica can operate when Miami shuts down due to weather, capturing passengers from canceled flights. But runway upgrades are just the foundation. The real revolution happens inside the new terminal complex. Phase 2 creates what aviation experts are calling the Caribbean Speed Gate. Passengers arriving on international flights can connect to regional Caribbean destinations without going through full immigration and customs processing. A 40-minute connection instead of Miami's average 3-hour layover nightmare. The system uses biometric scanning technology licensed from Singapore's Changi Airport, facial recognition that processes passengers faster than they can walk through the corridor. No lines, no delays, no missed connections due to U.S. immigration backlogs. Dr. Sarah Chen, the former Changi Airport executive Jamaica hired as their passenger experience consultant, designed a connection process so efficient that travelers actually prefer the Jamaica route over direct flights to other Caribbean islands. Why fly directly to Barbados when you can connect through Jamaica, experience their legendary hospitality, and still reach your final destination faster than through Miami? But infrastructure alone doesn't break Miami's dominance. The real weapon is financial warfare so sophisticated that most tourists will never realize they're part of an economic revolution. Meet David Grant, CFO of the Jamaica Tourist Board. His background includes 15 years at Goldman Sachs and an MBA from Wharton. The Jamaican government recruited him specifically to design what he calls competitive financial architecture, economic systems that make Jamaica irresistibly attractive to international tourists while slowly bleeding Miami's market share. The strategy has 3 components, each more devastating to Miami than the last. Component 1, currency hedging. Jamaica has negotiated fixed exchange rates with major European airlines for the next 5 years. What does this mean? European tourists booking Jamaica vacations are protected from currency fluctuations that can add hundreds to the cost of American-routed trips. When the dollar strengthens against the euro, Miami becomes more expensive. Jamaica's price stays locked. Virgin Atlantic signed the first agreement in March 2024. British Airways followed 2 weeks later. Lufthansa, Air France, and KLM are in final negotiations. Each contract represents millions of passengers who will find Jamaica packages significantly cheaper than Miami-routed alternatives. Component 2, the Caribbean dollar digital currency system. While Miami still operates on credit card networks that charge 2 to 3% transaction fees on international purchases, Jamaica has launched a digital currency specifically designed for tourism. European tourists can pre-purchase Caribbean dollars at guaranteed exchange rates, then spend them throughout their vacation without any transaction fees. The savings are substantial enough that travel bloggers are calling it the smart money way to vacation in the Caribbean. Social media influencers are creating content around the cost savings, generating organic marketing that Jamaica doesn't have to pay for. But component 3 is where Jamaica's financial warfare becomes truly devastating to Miami, the Caribbean Tourism Investment Trust. Here's how it works. Major European pension funds and sovereign wealth funds are investing directly in Jamaica's tourism infrastructure. Not just hotels and resorts, but the entire ecosystem. Airports, cruise terminals, attraction sites, transportation networks. When European tourists visit Jamaica, their vacation dollars are flowing back to European investors as dividends. This creates a powerful incentive for European travel companies to promote Jamaica over Miami-rooted destinations. They're not just selling vacations, they're protecting their investors' returns. Norway's government pension fund has committed $2.8 billion to the Caribbean Tourism Investment Trust. The Dutch pension fund ABP contributed another $1.9 billion. When a travel agent in Amsterdam recommends Jamaica over a Miami-connected destination, they're supporting their own retirement system. May 20th, 2024, a Lufthansa Airbus A350 touches down at Norman Manley International Airport for what the airline calls a route feasibility assessment. The aircraft is configured for 440 passengers in a premium economy layout designed specifically for 8-hour leisure flights. The assessment is actually the final test before Lufthansa announces something that will send shockwaves through Miami's tourism industry. The first direct Frankfurt to Kingston service, with connections to 12 other Caribbean islands. Captain Henrik Mueller pilots the test flight. His logbook includes routes to every major destination in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. His assessment of Jamaica's new facilities is damning to Miami's competitive position. This is what passenger experience should be: simple, fast, and focused on getting people to paradise instead of trapping them in connection hell. But Lufthansa is just the beginning. Jamaica has spent 2 years negotiating what they call the European Alliance, a coordinated network of European airlines offering direct Caribbean service through Kingston rather than American gateways. The alliance includes 8 major carriers: Lufthansa, Air France, KLM, British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Alitalia, TAP Portugal, and Iberia. Combined, they represent 73% of European air traffic to the Caribbean. Each airline receives incentives that make the Jamaica route more profitable than Miami connections. Reduced landing fees for the first 5 years, fuel at cost through Jamaica's new aviation fuel facility, and access to Jamaica's digital marketing platform that reaches 47 million potential Caribbean travelers across Europe. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, Jamaica's Director of Aviation Development, spent 18 months in European capitals negotiating these agreements. Her PowerPoint presentations included one slide that never failed to get airline executives' attention, a comparison showing that Miami-connected Caribbean flights have 23% lower customer satisfaction scores than direct routes, primarily due to connection stress and delays. The European Alliance also includes something Miami cannot match: coordinated scheduling that maximizes passenger convenience rather than hub efficiency. Flights from Europe arrive in Jamaica during optimal tourism hours, early afternoon, allowing immediate connection to resorts. Return flights depart late morning, giving tourists maximum beach time on their final day. Miami's hub system forces passengers to adapt to airline scheduling priorities. Jamaica's system adapts to vacation priorities. Which model do you think tourists prefer? But the European Alliance was still just set up for Jamaica's masterstroke, a move so audacious that when Miami tourism officials finally understood what was happening, their response would escalate this economic warfare into something approaching actual international conflict. July 8, 2024. Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava receives a briefing that ruins her entire summer. The document, marked Confidential Economic Threat Assessment, contains projections that show Miami losing $4.2 billion in annual tourism revenue by 2027 due to what analysts are calling the Jamaica bypass effect. The numbers are catastrophic. Miami International Airport faces a potential 18% reduction in Caribbean-bound passengers. Hotels report European bookings down 12% year-over-year, with travel agents citing more convenient Caribbean routing as the primary reason. Even Miami's cruise industry is being affected as European tourists choose Jamaica-based itineraries over Florida departures. Mayor Levine Cava convenes an emergency task force including representatives from Miami International Airport, the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, American Airlines, and this indicates how serious the situation has become. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The task force has 3 options, none of them attractive. Option 1, price warfare. Miami could reduce landing fees and offer incentives to European airlines, essentially subsidizing flights to compete with Jamaica's natural advantages. But this approach would cost Florida taxpayers an estimated $800 million annually, while only partially offsetting Jamaica's competitive benefits. Option 2, infrastructure acceleration. Miami could fast-track terminal expansions and passenger processing improvements to match Jamaica's efficiency. Timeline, 4 years. Cost, $3.2 billion. Problem, by the time Miami's improvements are complete, Jamaica will have evolved even further. Option 3, political intervention. The U.S. government could pressure European airlines through trade policy, environmental regulations, or security requirements that make Caribbean routing through American airports mandatory. This option carries the highest potential payoff, but also the greatest risk of international backlash. While Miami debates its response, Jamaica executes Phase 4 of Operation Bypass, a move so perfectly timed and legally bulletproof that it forces Miami to choose between accepting defeat or triggering an international incident. August 15, 2024. Jamaica signs a civil aviation agreement with the European Union that establishes what international law recognizes as Open Skies Plus status. The ceremony takes place at Jamaica's Parliament building, with representatives from all 27 EU member states in attendance. To most observers, this appears to be routine diplomatic cooperation. The reality is far more sophisticated. Jamaica has just achieved legal protection that makes American interference with their aviation strategy nearly impossible without violating international law. The agreement includes clauses that specifically prohibit third-party governments from interfering with EU-Jamaica aviation relationships. Any attempt by the United States to pressure European airlines away from Jamaica routes would constitute a violation of EU sovereignty that could trigger retaliatory trade measures. Professor Michael Hamilton, who teaches international aviation law at Oxford, calls the agreement brilliantly crafted legal armor. The United States cannot attack Jamaica's aviation strategy without simultaneously attacking European legal rights, a move that would have consequences extending far beyond tourism. But legal protection is meaningless without economic substance. That's why Jamaica simultaneously announces the Caribbean Tourism Acceleration Fund, a $2.1 billion investment program designed to make their hub strategy irreversibly attractive to international travelers. The fund includes projects that Miami simply cannot match: a new cruise terminal capable of handling the world's largest ships, an integrated rail system connecting the airport to major resort areas, and a digital tourism platform that allows seamless booking and payment across all Caribbean destinations. Most importantly, the fund finances Jamaica's Tourist Concierge AI, an artificial intelligence system that manages every aspect of a visitor's Caribbean experience. From flight connections to hotel upgrades to restaurant reservations to activity booking, the AI creates personalized itineraries that maximize satisfaction while generating revenue across the entire Jamaican tourism ecosystem. Early beta testing shows tourist satisfaction scores 34% higher than traditional vacation planning methods. European travel agencies are reporting that customers specifically request Jamaica AI-managed Caribbean trips, even when visiting other islands. Barbados announces they're developing a partnership protocol with Jamaica's hub system, essentially joining the Jamaican network rather than competing against it. Trinidad follows 2 weeks later. The Bahamas, Dominican Republic, and even Puerto Rico begin exploring integration agreements. What started as Jamaica's individual challenge to Miami has evolved into a Caribbean-wide movement toward tourism independence from American gateway cities. The financial markets respond immediately. Shares in Miami-based tourism companies drop 8% in a single trading session. American Airlines stock loses 12% of its value as analysts project reduced Caribbean revenue. Florida hotel chains see their market capitalization fall by $2.3 billion as institutional investors price in lost European tourist traffic. Meanwhile, Jamaican tourism stocks surge. Sandals Resorts, which operates properties throughout the Caribbean but is headquartered in Jamaica, sees its stock price increase 23% as investors bet on increased regional traffic flow. The Jamaican dollar strengthens against the US dollar for the first time in 8 years. European travel companies report record bookings for Caribbean vacations, driven by the convenience and cost savings of direct Jamaica routing. TUI Group, Europe's largest travel company, announces they're restructuring their entire Caribbean program around Jamaica connections rather than American gateways. The economic warfare that started with airport infrastructure has become a complete reshuffling of Caribbean tourism power dynamics, exactly as Jamaica planned. But Miami isn't surrendering without a fight. What happens next will determine whether Jamaica's gambit succeeds in permanently breaking American tourism dominance, or whether Miami's counterattack will crush the Caribbean challenge before it can fully develop. October 12, 2024. A classified meeting takes place in a secure conference room at the U.S. Department of Commerce. Around the table, representatives from the Federal Aviation Administration, the State Department, the U.S. Trade Representative's Office, and executives from major American airlines and hotel chains. The meeting's purpose is classified, but leaked documents reveal its objective: developing strategic response options to what officials are calling the Caribbean tourism disruption. The options under consideration reveal how seriously American officials view Jamaica's challenge to U.S. economic interests in the region. Response Option Alpha: regulatory warfare. The FAA could implement new security protocols for aircraft connecting through Caribbean airports, requiring additional screening procedures that would eliminate Jamaica's speed advantage. The protocols would be justified as counterterrorism measures, making them difficult for Jamaica to challenge legally. Response Option Beta: financial pressure. American banks could be encouraged to restrict lending for Caribbean tourism infrastructure projects. Insurance companies could raise rates for Caribbean airline operations. U.S. credit card companies could introduce processing delays for transactions in Caribbean digital currency, making the system less attractive to tourists. Response Option Gamma: the nuclear option. Complete restructuring of U.S. Caribbean aviation treaties to give American airlines preferential access to Caribbean routes while restricting European carriers' rights. This would effectively force European tourists back through American gateways regardless of convenience or cost. Each option carries significant risks. Regulatory warfare could trigger European Union complaints to the World Trade Organization. Financial pressure might drive Caribbean nations closer to Chinese and European financial systems. The nuclear option could damage U.S. relationships throughout Latin America and the Caribbean, but American tourism interests are hemorrhaging money in real time. Every month Jamaica's system becomes more established, reversing it becomes more expensive and politically difficult. The decision on which option to implement falls to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, who must balance American economic interests against international relationship preservation. Her choice will determine whether this economic warfare escalates into actual diplomatic conflict. Sound of international diplomatic communications, multilingual conversations. November 2024. What began as Jamaica's infrastructure project has evolved into a proxy conflict involving economic superpowers across 3 continents. China announces a $1.7 billion investment in Jamaica's digital tourism infrastructure, including AI systems, payment networks, and transportation logistics. The investment comes with technical expertise that makes Jamaica's tourism platform more sophisticated than anything available in North America. The European Union responds by launching the Caribbean Partnership Initiative, a €3.4 billion program providing development financing specifically for tourism projects that reduce Caribbean dependence on American gateway cities. Russia, seeking to expand influence in the Western Hemisphere, offers to supply Jamaica with aviation fuel at 15% below market rates, undermining American energy companies' profit margins in the region. Suddenly, Jamaica's airport expansion has become a battleground where global powers compete for economic influence in America's traditional sphere of control. U.S. officials realize they're not just fighting Jamaica anymore. They're fighting a coalition that includes some of America's most important allies and strategic competitors. Any aggressive response risks damaging relationships that extend far beyond tourism. Meanwhile, Jamaica continues executing its strategy with surgical precision. Phase 5 launches in December 2024, Total Caribbean Integration. Under this phase, Jamaica's airport becomes the coordination hub for vacation packages that include multiple Caribbean islands, cruise connections, and Central American destinations. European tourists can book 2-week itineraries that include Jamaica, Costa Rica, Panama, and 3 other Caribbean nations, all coordinated through Jamaica's AI system, all bypassing American cities entirely. The packages are not only more convenient than American-routed alternatives, they're significantly cheaper due to coordinated pricing across the entire network. A European family can vacation across 6 Caribbean and Central American destinations for less money and less travel time than a traditional Jamaica-only vacation routed through Miami. By January 2025, Jamaica's strategy has achieved something unprecedented in Caribbean history: genuine economic independence from American tourism infrastructure. European airlines report that 73% of their Caribbean passengers now prefer Jamaica routing over American gateways. Caribbean hotel bookings from Europe are up 41% year-over-year, while Florida bookings from Europe are down 28%. The numbers represent more than market share shifts. They represent a fundamental change in global tourism power structures that American officials never believed possible. January 15, 2025, Dr. Patricia Williams stands on the observation deck of Jamaica's new Terminal 3, watching the 4th Lufthansa flight of the day taxi toward takeoff. Each aircraft carries 440 passengers who began their Caribbean vacation by bypassing Miami entirely. The view from her window tells the story of Jamaica's ultimate gambit in real time. Lufthansa, Air France, British Airways, KLM, Virgin Atlantic, and TAP Portugal aircraft lined up on parallel runways. European tourists deplaning and immediately connecting to regional Caribbean flights without passing through a single American checkpoint.